This is Amy with North 40 Outfitters, and today I'm going to give you a few tips on planting asparagus. Now, asparagus is a phenomenal crop because even though it takes a couple of years to get established and it likes some good soil, you're going to be able to pick it for 15 to even 20 years down the road. Now, when you're creating an asparagus bed, you want to give it the best start you possibly can. So this is a nice little raised bed we have. And I've already put in some raised bed mix and some topsoil and also some manure and compost mix. I'm also going to add a little bit of potting soil just to lighten it up, and also with the peat moss that's typically in the potting soil, it'll help acidify the soil a little bit. Depending on where you are in the country, you might have more alkaline soil running closer to, say, maybe a pH of 7, where asparagus likes a little closer to 6.5. So keep that in mind when you test your soil in the spring if you're going to create an asparagus bed. Now I'm just going to add a bit of this, and then you just kind of mix it in as you go. And then I will dump in another big bag. So as I'm adding in a mixture of different types of soil, I like to choose topsoil and manure and compost and potting mix. And then this is a nice raised bed mix as well. That really, you want to give a good overall of nutrients for the asparagus plants to really do their best. So in this raised bed, I really like because it has a liner on the inside, so it's going to protect the metal a bit, and then it's also easier to handle, especially if you have to ever move soil. But so we just get our soil put in there. Whoops. And then also we want to kind of mix it a bit too. So you're just kind of fluffing your soil. That way there won't be one layer of just compost or just anything. Okay. So when you have your asparagus bed prepared, whether you're in a raised bed or even if you're growing it in a garden, you want to do a similar method. You want to be able to work in compost and manure and a good variety of amendments before you're going to plant your asparagus. Whether you are growing your asparagus in the garden or in a raised bed, you want to start as early as you possibly can in the spring. Now you can start asparagus by seed. So there's several different open pollinated varieties, and start them about 12 weeks before your last frost date. So you're going to want to count back on that calendar, and for a lot of us it's going to be February or March to start the seeds. And after they have a chance to grow, you're going to have these cute little babies, which take a bit longer to be able to mature versus buying the crowns that you can often find at North 40 early in the spring. Now the beauty of this is they're fun to grow, and it's a really good process to watch them come from the seed all the way up to these mature plants that are going to be with you for decades. But they do take some extra care. Now a bed like this is absolutely ideal for a nursery bed for asparagus. So when you have your seeds that have sprouted, they're about 12 weeks old, and they're ready to go outside because there's no more chance of frost, all you have to do is carefully, at this point, just take them out and just plant them. And maybe give them a foot in between. This isn't as critical on spacing because this is only going to be a temporary bed for these asparagus plants. So give them a foot in between. Make sure you give them adequate water throughout the season, 1 to 2 inches a week. So asparagus needs a bit more moisture, more rain than a lot of other vegetables. And so if you're not getting that naturally, make sure you water them, and also be sure that you give them an all-around good fertilizer. So after a year or two, once they start growing, and you don't pick these, they're just going to grow, then you're going to treat them as you would the crown that you would buy in the spring. So if you would like to have asparagus faster, even though it's not a fast process, but very much worthwhile, look for asparagus crowns in the springtime. Sometimes these are in bags and they're drier, and you need to soak them in warm water for a half hour to an hour before you're going to plant, just to help give those roots a chance to be able to pull up that moisture and get ready to grow. And so once you do that, once again, in your well-amended bed for your asparagus, whether it's in the garden or in a raised bed, you want to dig a nice big trench. If you're in a traditional garden bed in the ground, make sure you're digging down a good 6 to 8 inches and a good 12 inches wide, because you want to loosen up that soil and you want to give those roots a lot of chance to be able to spread without obstruction. So when you go to plant them, you dig a nice trench in that already loosened soil, and you are going to give your asparagus plenty of room to grow. So now the asparagus crowns, they look like little spiders or something. You know, lots of legs that go out everywhere. And you're going to want to place it in the ground and spread them out. And then for your next placement, once again, you spread them out. You want to give these guys plenty of room to grow. So once again, we're just going to spread the little roots apart and give it at least 12, even up to 18 inches, kind of tip to tip on the roots. So you can have a lot of space in between your plants, and right now it might feel like a lot, but it's really not, because after a few years these plants are really going to take off, and each plant will produce at least a half a pound of asparagus per season if everything is well cared for. Now after you have them in the trench, you just cover them up. Make sure they are well watered. Like I said, 1 to 2 inches of rain or irrigation a week, and make sure they have good fertilizer. Now, to know how much you're going to plant so you can plan ahead, is you want to figure about 5 to 10 plants per person. For someone like me, I'd need 15 because I really, really like asparagus. But keep that in mind, 5 to 10 plants per person for the season. You're harvesting roughly a half a pound per plant once the plant is mature. And the hardest part about asparagus, but one that is really, really critical, is once you get your crowns planted and they are growing up, don't pick it. Don't pick it for at least 2 years. Just let them go, and by the 3rd year, you can start cutting off those delicious spears that sprout in the spring, and then by years 4, 5, and on and on and on, you're going to be enjoying asparagus for a very, very long time. If you have any questions on growing asparagus, please comment below. Or if you want some in-person help, go to any of our North 40 Outfitters stores or visit us on north40.com. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button.